Hello, everybody. Welcome to What the Frick Live. I'm your host, Emily Menshouse. It's a one-man show tonight. My co-host, Will Martinez, is having some issues and things. Hopefully, maybe he'll sign on later. I don't know. But hopefully he'll be here. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in this evening for What the Frick Live. We are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. So if you are watching on any of those platforms, please share this out. Make tons of comments. That keeps us in the algorithm. Give us a heart on Facebook, because that keeps us in the algorithm. And you all know my history with shadow banning. I got shadow banned again today over a post I think I did in like 2022 or 2023, over a year ago. I know it was over a year ago. So I'm banned, but we have an amazing guest tonight. Before I go into our guest, let me talk about, we have a website now, and it's a little bit long. It's a little bit lengthy of a website, but it is, this is going to reduce to just whatthefricklive.com over time, but What the Frick Live, WTFricklive.my.canva.site/WTFricklive. Go over there. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please message us through the website. That will help a whole lot. Thank you. Hey, Julie. How are you doing? Good to see you. Please make a lot of comments, ask some questions, because we have an amazing guest tonight. If you all know me, you know that I love the Stanley Hotel. And it's not just because of the scary Stephen King stuff. I did not know anything about Stephen King and writing The Shining from the Stanley Hotel until I was in my early 20s. Now, I've investigated the Stanley Hotel twice. We're going to listen to some EVPs tonight. We're going to look at some pictures of F.O. Stanley and some other anomalies that were caught on camera from the Stanley Hotel. But most importantly, because I think this gets lost in all the horror of Stephen King and the story behind that, and plus Dumb and Dumber and things, the history of F.O. and F.E. Stanley and what actually they created and built, and they were inventors. And we're going to talk about a lot of the history of that. Tonight, I have a really awesome guest coming on. First time I've ever had somebody on the show from the Stanley Hotel. I have looked up people all over the place. I've also had some other podcasters already reach out asking how they can get in contact with Kiefer Thomas. He was a former night auditor, a tour manager of the Stanley Hotel. We're going to dive into the haunted corridors, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of things he's experienced. He sent some pictures and things. And so let's bring Kiefer on now. Hello, Kiefer.
Hi, Emily. Good evening.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a long day, but thank God it's Friday.
I know, TGIF.
Yeah.
And real quick, we talked about this before we went live. I almost dressed up as Wendy Torrance tonight, everybody. If you remember from Halloween, always dress up every year, Kiefer, in Bad Moms, I was Mommy Dearest, Joan Crawford, one year. The other, I was Peg Bundy. 1 year too. Next year I have my ideas and outfits coming out, but I'm not going to tell anybody yet. But it's another Bad Moms club over here. But Kiefer, thank you so much for being part of this show, and I appreciate you. And I know I had to reach out to you because we've talked before. Regina Thomas. Hey, I know him. Hey, Regina. Thank you for joining. I talked to you before this to prepare for the show last week and everything, but the number, which my listeners and stuff for What the Frick Live knows, that 313 always shows up all the time. So when I started researching who I can get on from the Stanley Hotel, I used LinkedIn because that's where a lot of professional people post your profiles. And when I clicked on you, Stanley Hotel, not auditor, tour manager, I clicked on how to contact you, and your website, and your numbers on your website was 30013.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's 313. He's
Very
the
odd.
guy. He's the guy to talk about the Stanley Hotel. So thank you so much. So Kiefer, a little bit about yourself. How long did you work at the Stanley? What was your roles there, and how did you even obtain that job?
So I guess to start, I started working at the Stanley Hotel. I needed basically a summer job. I was living in Loveland, or actually Fort Collins, Colorado at the time, CSU, Colorado State University. So I drove up to Estes Park, and I figured from watching that old Ghost Hunters episode when they were at the Stanley for those 2 nights, how awesome would it be to work in a place like that? So I drove up to Estes Park, inquired about a job, and the tour manager at the time, his name was Clay Johnson. Can't believe I remember that. I interviewed with him, took a full tour. It lasted probably about 3 hours, and towards the end of it, he offered me a job right then and there to start doing daytime history tours. So I obviously said yes. I started the next week. They gave me a pamphlet of information to go through, pretty thick at the time. But I have a panache in history. I think any
Yes.
haunted location has a story behind it. If you don't know the history behind a location, and then all the spooky stuff doesn't really make much sense. So with the Stanley, I started off doing daytime history tours. Eventually, I segued into the evening portion, so the night ghost tours, if you will. And I did that for a while, and that was extremely successful. While I was doing that, I befriended a couple of the people who did the paranormal investigations, so the overnights.
Okay.
Carl Pfeiffer, Callie Sherrill, and Connor, I believe. I can't think of his last name at the moment. Anyway, I joined them occasionally, and I did paranormal investigations with them. Got to be fast friends with Carl and both Callie. They're both great friends of mine today. And did that for probably about a year and a half. And then I found out that they were slowly starting to phase out the tour aspect, at least as it pertains to paranormal. And so I was able to take a transfer to a night auditor. And as you know, Billy, the night auditor from that Ghost Hunters episode, when they were interviewing him, all the stuff that he was seeing, because he's there by himself. So I thought, my God, this is my dream job. There's no way I'm going to say no to this. So, for probably a solid 4 or 5 months, I got to be the night auditor at the infamous Stanley Hotel. And yes, I did see a lot of stuff.
So with night auditor duties, like when I think of a night auditor, I have never worked in a hotel. So did you have to like roam the area? Was it office front desk type things? Did a lot of people come in at midnight wanting a room at the Stanley? Like what was life like as a night auditor there?
So as a night auditor in hospitality in general, it's a pretty boring job. You have to have a certain panache for numbers, of course.
Mhm.
Um, Not all hotels are the same. Some places it'll take you an hour. In the case of the Stanley Hotel, a typical audit shift would take me about 4 hours. It's fairly involved because there's other departments you have to balance, basically diet accounting. With the Stanley, you are correct. I would have people come down from the rooms. I would have people come into the lobby at midnight, 2 a.m., walking around. They wanted to know, hey, what have you seen here? Have you seen any shadow figures or ghosts? And I would usually respond, and I was like, yeah, Casper's over there in the corner, but not really. So the night audit shift at the Stanley, for the most part, was a quiet shift. It was involved, but you did have people come down to kind of break your concentration, liven things up, which was great. But since you're the only person on staff, basically for, we'll say 5 hours, not only are you the front desk, but you're also reservations, your maintenance, your housekeeping, your
Wow.
security. So you do it all.
Mhm.
So I would, on a typical shift for me at the front desk, once I got to a spot where I could stop reasonably, I'd lock everything up and I would take a walk around the hotel outside, and depending on how busy it was, I might visit some of the other buildings as well. So,
So so we have that infamous story about Jim Carrey with Dumb and Dumber. He stayed in the Stephen King room and he left at midnight or said and wouldn't speak about it, wouldn't tell any. And to this day, I don't think he's ever talked about it. So, did you get a lot of those things too in the middle of the night? Did a lot of people come and leave or come down like I'm leaving, something's wrong in my room, I'm out, peace?
it's a good question. I've never been asked
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, I never had anybody leave in the middle of the night. However, I did have something happen once in a room that's not particularly known for activity. And
Oh.
yeah, this was interesting. The only reason why I knew about this incident is that when I was there, when I was trained by some of the old timers, they told me some of the stories that say would happen maybe annually.
Hmm.
You go into any haunted location, you expect things to happen right now, like on cue. It's not how it works, of course. Some things happen weekly, monthly. Some things will happen if you bring the energy into the place. At the Stanley Hotel, like a lot of places, we'll get repetitive things that'll happen, but it'll be very seldom. This particular room on the fourth floor, go figure.
Okay, kids, the kid
Yep,
floor or red rum in red rum written up there in
it is.
the
Yeah.
yeah.
So again, this is a small thing. If you didn't know anything about it, you would just kind of brush it off. But in one of the rooms on the west side of the fourth floor in the back, basically it's the last room at the end of the hallway. That room is known every once in a while, maybe every 6, 10 months, the bathroom would lock the bathroom door. Nobody knows why. I mean, the odd thing about this is the bathroom lock is on the inside of the bathroom, of course.
Mm,
So I was at the front desk. There was a wedding reception going on in the ballroom, and we were busy, of course. So I got this woman to come downstairs, wrapped up in a towel, asking me if I could let her into the bathroom. So she told me what room it was. I just jotted it down, told her I'd be right up. As I was walking upstairs, it just occurred to me as I was walking up there, oh my God. And I apologize, Emily, because I can't think of the room off the top of my head.
oh, that's okay.
But I got in there, and I walked in real tentatively, and her and her girlfriend in the room waiting for me to open up the bathroom door. I looked at the door and I walked up to it real gingerly and I turned the handle and yeah, it was locked. So at that point, I think they saw the trepidation on my face. So I
Hmm.
turned around and I explained the story to them is that what we think happens is one of the kids on the fourth floor here will lock the bathroom door from the inside. Now, again,
Okay.
it's unsubstantiated, of course, but that's what we believe. And to see that actually happen, it was the only time that happened since I've been at the hotel. So I was able to fish out a credit card and basically wiggle it in the door jam and pop the lock open. And I slowly pushed the door open a little bit and peeked inside. Of course, there's
Hmm.
nobody in there. And I looked at the door handle and yeah, the lock was engaged. And it was one of those turn locks. So you have to
Oh,
physically
you
turn
have
it.
to physically turn it to lock
Yeah.
it. So you can't just accidentally lock it on the inside and like this or wind gust or something comes through. Because the times I've been there at the Stanley Hotel, and it's mostly in the early spring or kind of like late summer, but they didn't have to use air conditioning or anything. The wind off those mountains was beautiful, and they
Mhm.
opened up the windows and the doors when I was there, and that was pretty much what I felt like they used a lot. Yeah, I mean, you worked there. Maybe they had the air conditioner on. I don't know. But all the doors I thought was interesting. Even the front doors were standing wide open to come up into the Stanley the times I've been there, which has
Yeah,
only been 4 times.
the hotel has no AC, which is why.
Oh, really? They don't have
Yeah.
AC at all? Well, I
No,
didn't
and
know that.
and that is a very common thing you'll see in hotels in the mountains.
Regina says, I thought you told me it was 418.
That's a different room and a different story.
Oh, Regina. Tell me about 418 then. What happened there?
So a little backstory on 418, for our guests that are listening, if you don't know much about the hotel, the fourth floor of the hotel is typically where most of the occurrences happen. Now, the reason for that is when the hotel first opened up, the staff would be staying on the fourth floor.
Mhm.
So, and of course, if the staff is going to be there, most of the employees stay there for the whole season because the hotel didn't have heat. So it would be open for a very short time of the year. So with the staff staying on the fourth floor, and of course they bring their families and the kids. So in my opinion, you have a lot of energy left over. Now with the fourth floor, we do believe there are two little boys up there.
Okay.
In regards to room 418, and I have actually had two incidences happen in that room. In fact, if you were to take me to task in terms of what room would I stay in, given the choice, I would take 418. Way,
14.
way above and beyond 217, the Stephen King room, if you will. So with 418, that room probably by far and away receives most of the attention from the two boys.
So real quick, the two boys, they're not twins, right? Because we got the Stephen King, The Shining, we got the twin girls.
That was a story fabricated by Kubrick because he figured little girls are creepier than little boys.
I kind of agree with him.
Yeah. So do that as you will. So
But
two little boys.
two little boys. I mean, are they twins? Are they brothers? Do we know anything about them?
I think they're brothers. I can't really say much if they're twins or not, but I'm pretty sure they're brothers.
Okay, go ahead and tell us more about the boys.
So, this is one of those situations that really, at least on a personal level, called into question for me. Yeah, it's an old building. It's over 100 years old. It's wood. Things creak, things moan. It's going to happen, especially on a windy day, like you pointed out.
Mm-hmm.
So with 418, I was doing a night tour, and if there's a room available, I'll usually go to the front desk when I was in tours, of course. And I got to be really good friends with the people at the front desk. So if there was something available, they would usually give me the key. So
Okay, good.
I had about 14 or 15 people in room 418, myself included. I'll turn off all the lights. Got to set the mood. And
Mm-hmm.
I turned on a desk lamp. So at least we had some, residual light. So I standing against the wall in the corner. The bedside table with the lamp had a typical pad of paper and a pen on it. Everybody was sprinkled around the bed listening. I was telling them basically the history of that room and the boys. There is an older woman standing right next to me. And then she let out like this muffled yell, fell against me, and then basically tried to run away into the other corner of the room. It took everybody a surprise. We didn't know what had happened. And finally, she said, that pen on the table there next to you just moved. And
That's creepy.
yeah, everybody, myself included, were like, oh my gosh. So she stayed where she was. And I told everybody at that point, all right, everyone, I'm going to finish up, the story about this room in the hallway. But while I do, watch the table, you know. So maybe a couple of minutes, into trying to finish my diatribe, sure enough, even I saw this myself, that, maroon colored pen with the Stanley logo,
Yeah, I have it here at my house. I have
you
one.
know, moved about 2 inches across that pad of paper. I
Was
was,
it level?
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Really?
yeah. I was dumbfounded. You know, I looked up at everybody. Everybody, we're all looking at one another. No one is saying a word. And finally, I broke the silence. And said, "So, who wants to see the concert hall?" We all went up, left the room right away.
Well, I immediately think of, because I know the history of the Stanley Hotel, you're moving this pin, but people don't understand that the wooden pencils that have Stanley written on them was
Mhm.
actually from F.O. and F.E. Stanley, and their father was a teacher. So was that connected to the move of the pin on the pad?
I don't know if that would have been connected or not, simply because the two boys that roam that fourth floor aren't connected to FO or Flora. Um, a
Well,
lot of it,
what if they had pencils and it said Stanley on that? Now you have a pen that says Stanley, and they saw that, so they touched it and moved it because it's
you
something
know,
similar.
and it's very possible because it does look similar.
So just the color, it's a pen, and they're looking at it, and it's like that says Stanley, and because I remember. Don't
Mhm.
you remember the Stanley pencils?
Back
Like
in the
growing
day.
up, yeah, I still remember it says Stanley on them
So,
with the eraser, and you sharpen them. You'd all go up old school sharpener up at the
yep.
teachers, and it was the Stanley.
Yeah, the yellow pencils with the green logo on them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd be interested to do more work in there. When can I go to 418? I'm gonna bring some Stanley pencils too with me and see what happens.
So, and I stayed in that room by myself one night.
Okay.
Because of working there, obviously you get, I don't want to say privileges, but if there's something available, we get discounts on rooms, of course, as
Awesome.
employees. So 418 it was.
Mhm.
So I did stay in there one night by myself, and I stayed up in bed reading with one light on, reading my Kindle, and I will say I did hear movement in the closet. So I got up and checked it out. Couldn't really see anything. I cracked the bathroom door, and then when I woke up the next morning, the light in the bathroom was on. S- it's a little thing, but I'll
Yeah.
tell you right now, I did not leave any light on.
Well, with the ghost hunters or ghost adventures, maybe it was, don't they videotape themselves sleeping? There was a lot of stuff that happened at nighttime in those rooms. And I don't
Yeah.
think they staged it by any means, but there's a lot that happened. So I brought up the pencil incident and the name Stanley on the pencil. And that's something else I want to talk about this evening, the history behind FO and FE Stanley, and the Stanley steamers and the airbrush and Kodak pictures and all that. So, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the Stanley Hotel without the spookiness yet of it?
Yeah. So, again, if, any haunted place has its backstory, of course. So the Stanley, excuse me, got it started. They broke down. So FO, he broke ground on the Stanley in late 1907. And the reason why he decided to build a hotel is prior to that, going back to 1903, 1904, himself and Flora were living in Estes Park, and at that time it was kind of being thought of or looked at as being a place for health. Like you see with a lot of the doctors telling their TB patients to move west because of the dry air. That's
Mhm.
exactly the case in this situation. So FO and Flora, per some recommendations of a doctor in Denver, found Estes Park. They liked it. FO had their primary residence built in 1904, about a mile, give or take, um, right down the road from the present day hotel. Um, while they were there, he kind of saw the need for hospitality, and lodging there in the valley. And so, with the money that he had made from his photography business, they broke ground on the Stanley Hotel in 1907. And little known fact, he actually wanted to name the hotel the Dunraven Inn or the Dunraven Hotel. And the reason for that came from another, I guess, notable figure in the Estes Valley history. His name was Lord Dunraven. He was like the fourth Earl going back to Wales. But the townsfolk kind of revolted against that because Dunraven didn't have a very good rapport in town with the people because he was illegally purchasing land in the valley through, I guess you would call illegal homesteading. In fact, one room at the hotel, the McGregor Ballroom, is
Mhm.
actually named in honor of a guy named Alexander McGregor, who was a lawyer in Estes Park, and he helped to run Dunraven out of town
Ouch.
for his shady business practices. And so FO, being an extremely nice, genuinely nice guy, finally, recanted and said, all right, we can name the hotel the Stanley Hotel. So that was in 1907. They broke ground and they finally opened up to the public 4th of July in 1909. Um, they did have a soft opening prior to this in June. And there was a pharmaceutical conference, I guess, if you will, of, well, pharmacists that were at the hotel conducting their business. And then finally on the 4th of July, they had the grand poobah and open it up to the public. So in 1909, it was now open for business. Back then, a room at the hotel would cost you between $5 and $8 a night. Um, I don't know what that is, and
I think that would be expensive back then.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah, and for all intensive purposes, from the moment they opened in 1909, the hotel has always been, I guess, if you will, a beacon of happiness and entertainment in the valley. It's always been, I guess, a showcase of music because his wife Flora adored and loved
Oh,
music,
love music.
which is why you have that piano in piano room. It was one of her
Mhm.
original pianos. Um, Again, because of the hotel lobby, the McGregor room, it was always, a focal point for meetings, for get-togethers for
Mhm.
residents in the valley. In fact, the restaurant, the Cascades restaurant, didn't actually come around until 1946. So
Okay.
after FO had died. Prior to that, it was the back porch. So
What was the bar name again? I'm sorry.
it's called Cascades.
The Cascades, that's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So in terms of the backstory of the hotel, to my knowledge, and again, I'd like to go back to that whole history trope. You know,
Beautiful though. This is beautiful bar, by the
it
way.
really is.
It
It's
is.
amazing. If you like Scotch, bourbon, or whiskey, that bar will be your happy
Yes.
place.
It's my happy place. But I will forewarn people, you are in a higher altitude of land. Pace yourself. Please pace yourself.
Yes.
And they do have a drink there called red rum. So
Red rum punch.
yes, it was pretty good too. I tried it. So go
Y-
ahead. I'm sorry, Kiefer. I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
in the front of the hotel, with that, short but central staircase, when the hotel first opened up, there used to be this huge porte cochere,
Okay.
like an awning, But right around the early to mid 1920s, Flora had asked FO if she could get rid of that awning or porte cochere because it interfered with too much light coming into the lobby. So
Hmm.
they got rid of it shortly after they had opened. And the exterior of the building actually used to be mustard yellow.
Yeah, it used to be yellow. I do remember reading about that and then seeing pictures. Let me see original photo. They have like a then and now photo. I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of the Stanley Hotel Estes. Um,
Where is that?
I'm looking here. It shouldn't.
It was
Yeah,
like
let me just do yellow. Original
yeah,
Stanley Hotel yellow.
it's a great picture because it splits the hotel in half, white
Well,
and yellow.
here's a picture I've seen a lot too. See,
Yeah,
that's the portico, isn't it? Is that what you were talking about?
it
Or
is. Yes.
yeah. Well, why would she want it so dark? I don't understand that. It seems like light would be nice to have there.
And,
Um,
and that's why Flora asked him to take it off, actually.
yeah.
So,
Where is
um,
that? It's a
yeah,
really nice picture. It shows the left side of it yellow and then how it transformed over the years.
yeah, whoever put that together did a really good job.
They did.
You
I
know,
don't know.
so,
Maybe it'll pop up. I'll find it here in a little bit and see if I can pull it back up here in a second.
all right. Going back to the history of the hotel, it has undergone several owners through the years. The hotel never really made money. In fact, a lot of the times when FO would head back east, back home to Massachusetts, Newton, Massachusetts, he would usually go home at a loss, and he expected that. Um, Speaking much to FO's character, he was a type of person that he wanted, you know, everything here to be available for his guests. He wasn't looking to make money or profit of anybody. I mean, he genuinely cared about people's health. After he died in 1940, when it went into private hands after that, the same thing happened. It never really made money, but people love the hotel and for what it had. Its history was just so beloved in the valley. So
Well, and he was well loved too because not only I mean, I talked about the Stanley pencils and things too, but the Stanley steamer car,
mhm.
the airbrush, a little bit about photography,
Violins,
violins too. A little bit about photography back then is that most of the pictures were on tin. Is that right, or some kind of metal
glass,
glass?
glass.
And so they invented the airbrush to give that lipstick or that rouge or the blush on women's photos or bring some life to these images. And then they actually sold that airbrush technique to Kodak. And
Yeah,
Kodak went through that. So, like the Stanley started Kodak in many aspects of color imaging,
yeah.
you know,
George
and
Eastman owes his business and success to FO.
They do. And here's something interesting with the twin aspect. FO and FE, weren't they twins? They were twins,
They
were
were
they?
fa
S-
they were so
So,
similar that even the story goes that even the family dog had trouble telling them apart.
yeah. So we have this twin aspect that's going on. The twin boys up on the fourth floor, the twin girls in the movie. So there has to be some kind of meaning behind this twin issue at the Stanley Hotel. But you know, the Stanley steamer car too that they had, and that was just run on water, right?
Yeah,
Steam.
water and steam. Yeah, in fact, FO and FE both, they made their fortunes, like you said, off the photography business with these glass plates. Now, the reason why they made the money is prior to the process that they developed to make these plates, it would take one person by hand about 60 plates in an hour. The process with the airbrush, like you had mentioned, that enabled them to speed up the process where they could
Hmm.
coat 60 plates in a minute.
Right.
So it totally revolutionized it. Obviously, they held on to it for a number of years before they sold it. Oh gosh, I think I want to say 1918. Don't quote me on that.
Didn't he sell everything, or like when FE passed away, because he passed away because he was a daredevil. I think these Stanley
Yeah.
steamers didn't have brakes, right? Or did they have brakes? Or
I don't know if
what did they have? He was a speed demon on the road, all right?
he's a speed demon on the road. Yeah,
Yeah.
he rolled it.
He rolled it, he died, and FO, in my opinion, went through a major depression. I mean, that's your twin. Like you're connected. There's a special bond there.
Oh,
And
yeah,
he ended
absolutely.
it, and he ended up taking in FO's wife that nobody really liked, or FE's wife that nobody really liked. I don't remember her name right now, but and gave her a place to stay, which he ended up giving Lord Dunraven a place to stay at the
Yeah,
Stanley.
even Dunraven he did. So, FO really was generally a nice guy, even in
He
his home.
was. He was. I really like him and the history behind it and stuff. And people don't really talk about him that much, or Effie, and how they invented things and how they really built that community, because it was also the only community in the West that had electricity. They built their own little power plant up there
Yeah,
in
in fact,
Essex.
yeah, the Stanley Hotel was one of only two hotels west of the Mississippi when they opened up, in the 19, well, I guess single digits, to
Mhm.
have electricity. The other one was the Del Coronado out in California.
Oh, Del Coronado, that's haunted too.
Yeah.
So, was that the electricity after the gas explosion? Like Mrs. Wilson. Let's talk about Mrs. Wilson, because we haven't even talked about her yet, and that's kind of like the Stephen King room too, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Let's talk about Mrs. Wilson. Did they do electricity after the gas explosion?
Well, they had
Cut it.
electricity the entire time. They had gas as a
Okay.
backup in case
Okay.
so the electricity, for those of us who don't know, was generated by power plant that FO built a few miles up the valley, up Fall River. And he not only did he supply his own hotel with electricity, but he also supplied some of the businesses in Estes Park with electricity. But he also had gas as a backup just in case it failed. Now, the problem with the gas is he used, I want to say, I believe he used kerosene. Is it kerosene?
Yeah, it was kerosene.
Was it? It was. Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Which, as you know, highly, highly flammable. So, segueing into Miss Wilson in 217, um, what we believe happened is, towards the late afternoon, going into early evening, basically getting ready for the guests. Miss Wilson, who was a housekeeper there, was going in all the rooms, basically lighting the gas lamps. Um, Now, the reason why 217 blew up is we believe earlier in the day, while housekeeping was in the various rooms on the second floor tidying up, someone had knocked the turn level or lever,
Hmm.
basically opening up that valve for the gas to come out. And so throughout most of the afternoon, that room was filling up with kerosene. So when Miss Wilson comes along, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, basically tidying up the rooms, getting ready for the evening's guests, she walks in there, gets ready to open it even further, light it, not knowing the room is already filled with gas, and it blows off that entire section of the hotel.
Like there's pieces of that hotel over on the other mountainside, isn't it? All the way across the valley.
Yeah.
Didn't it blow that far? I think. I don't know. I can't remember, but the
Story goes,
explosion was massive.
it blew debris clear across the valley to the base of Prospect Mountain. Now, to me, the absolutely amazing part of that is, I think her name was Elizabeth Wilson. She survived.
That's it. Yeah.
And the reason for that, again, which what is believed, is the force, the compression of that gas with the explosion blew her through the floor. And so she landed downstairs into the McGregor room with 2 broken legs and 2 broken ankles, but she survived.
And
And
then FO really took care of her,
he
though.
he did. FO paid all her medical bills, took care of her for the next 3 years while she recuperated, brought her back, and Miss Wilson continued to work up to the hotel right up until the same year that FO died in 1940. So again, I know I kind of keep going back to what kind of a person FO was, but I mean, he's the kind of guy that I think a lot of people should look up to.
And did he build a house for her to stay in that kind of resembles the Stanley? I remember a story along that, but I haven't really researched it down the road or when they're.
So I don't think he built a house for her. She had her own residence in Estes.
Okay.
He more or less took care of her there. I'm
Mhm,
sure there were probably times where, I can see him and Flora having her over their house for a few days at a time to recuperate as well.
mhm.
Considering
That's tragic.
yeah, it really
That's
is.
And they're very lucky because that place stayed busy all the time, and they had a very important people there, elite people, presidents and
Mhm.
actors and actresses, Hollywood, everybody come there. And it's, I mean, I hate that Mrs. Wilson got injured, but they're very lucky that nobody else did because it blocked the ballroom.
Yeah,
What if there was like 50 people in the ballroom or something that night or more
yeah, there
or
would have been
anything?
death. The fact that
But
nobody died.
yeah. That's amazing. I freaking love the Stanley Hotel. I've been drawn to that place in my teens and everything. That and Mount Rushmore. I don't know why. Don't ask me about Mount Rushmore. So now you've talked about some of your experiences and we've brought up FO. The last time I was at the Stanley Hotel was in 2018, not 19, 2018. Now I wasn't there when they built the maze or anything, but I remember the maze contest and all that stuff. And I have some EVPs that we're going to listen to here in a little bit, but you have actually very rarely do you ever capture anything on camera if you do paranormal investigating, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, Stanley Hotel and one other place is the only time I've ever captured anything on camera, but you captured stuff on camera and it's in the billiard room, which is also that famous scene in Dumb and Dumber with the orange suit and the blue suit. They're in the billiard room. They're so can you tell us a little bit the background of the billiard room and why that maybe FO Stanley hangs out there? And I'll get these pictures ready to show.
Yeah, so with the rooms at the Stanley Hotel, the lobby and McGregor ballroom notwithstanding, one of the other more famous rooms at the Stanley is, like you said, the billiards room. Now, the billiards room, one of FO's passions was billiards. However, being the time that it was, just after the turn of the century, the billiards room, even though it wasn't off limits to women, the easiest way to access this room was to go through a smaller room called the Pinion. Now, the Pinion room was
Yeah.
off limits to women. That was the quote unquote smoking room, brandy, cognac for the men. So, in order for the women to access the billiards room, they would literally have to go outside of the hotel up onto a small a porch, if you will, and then enter the room from the outside. There's a bench in the billiards room on the left side of that picture out of view that the women would sit at. And in that entire space, FO had 4 billiards tables. He loved billiards. It was his passion. It was always, I guess, rumored never beat him, even if you were better. He didn't like it.
Let him
Um,
win. He's like a
let him win.
child. He's a child. Let him win. Let your kid win.
In fact, in the middle of that picture, you could see a case that looks like some balls or circles in it. That's a
Yeah.
case of some of the original billiards balls that they used.
Wow.
That part I think is pretty neat. And so whenever FO was at the hotel, if he could get away from entertaining his guests, this is the room that you would find him in.
Okay. So he loved pool, or billiards, back then too. So this
Yeah.
is the picture FO, and here's it. Just so happenstance, which I have not showed you this, so I want your opinion on it. That's why I haven't showed you. I'm going to show you this is the room I caught FO Stanley on camera too. But this next picture I want to show that you sent me, you actually caught something here, and it's honestly. Let me tell you this. I'll just go ahead and tell you this. The image I caught of FO Stanley is in the next mirror. So it's close by to each other. So here's this picture here. This is crazy. I got chills. I get chills right now with this black entity shadow person there. So tell us how you captured this picture.
So that black entity you're seeing there just left of center. Obviously, I mean, you can see a little bit of a head. You can see
Yeah.
kind of where the neck would be because you can still see part of the reflected white wall from the other side of the room. So, and obviously you can see, the window on the other side of the room from that mirror. So this was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, just kind of going through, I like to take random pictures, random shots, and if it's good enough, I'll take it home and edit it and use it at some point. So, this is something I didn't see till much, much later.
So, do you get goosebumps when you see this? Like, when you went through your films and you saw this much later, how did you feel when you saw that? Because when I captured something, I didn't even know I captured it. And I go home and I'm with I was out there on a work trip. This is my second time at the Stanley, and I was just capturing pictures. And my coworker I was with, he's like, "Can I look through your pictures of the Stanley?" I said, "Sure." So he's the one that caught what I got, and he threw my phone at me, and he was like, "What the heck, man? What the heck? He's on there. He's on there." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I'm not going to go back up there." So I look at it, and I got goosebumps all over me, and I was like, "I have to find answers. We're going back up to the Stanley Hotel. I'm going back up." And so I found the tour guide with me, and we try to debunk the photo. And I'll show you the photo, and I'll go into more about that, about debunking. And we couldn't debunk it. And if you see the statue of F.O. Stanley out front now, it looks like F.O. Stanley in the mirror. But when you found this picture, how did you feel when you saw that? Was that just did you go to management? Did you say anything to anybody, or?
No, I said nothing to management, and the reason for that is management doesn't typically like to hear about the paranormal side of things.
That's
So
sad.
yeah, I mean they know it's there. They don't like to recognize it, even though it's one of the things that draws people to the hotel. They have their business models that lie in other directions. But I took
That's
this
one of
to
the clearest pictures. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. That's one of the
oh,
clearest pictures I've ever seen of a shadow figure.
when I first came across that, it was for about 4 or 5 seconds. All the air left the room. Everything was dead silent, and I was just how you get fixated on something real
Yeah.
myopically. It's exactly how it was. And finally, I was like, "Oh my god!" You know,
Yeah. That's amazing image capture there. And we get a lot of that out of the Stanley Hotel with other people in recent years. Like they're kind of shadowy, or it looks like something in movement. It's kind of blurred a little bit.
and
Um,
the thing I like actually almost better than the figure itself about this picture that I think really illustrates something that a lot of folks don't really stop to think about. This is in the daytime. It's not
that's
at
true.
night. Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
So
Oh,
yeah.
Carolyn's, hey, how are you? Thank you for tuning in. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. I saw one of my friends on here. She's tuning in. So thank you so much for tuning in. Um, but this is just really amazing to me because it's solid too. And you
Yeah.
don't have to second guess yourself. Now my picture is also solid.
Let's see it.
Okay, hold on. Let me get it up. Hold on a second. I want to show you a picture beforehand first. Okay. Oops. Close that down. Open that. Let me show you. This is the tour guide, which this is a daytime tour. This isn't the day two. Okay.
Oh,
Um, Where can I share my screen at? Window. Here we go. Okay. I don't know. You might recognize that tour guide. It's really blurry. This is back in 2013,
13.
12,
Okay.
12 or 13. So this was before Facebook was really popular or anything like that. And so this is the billiard room. And see, this back corner was that last window there where you caught the dark entity there to the left. You can see the little
Yeah.
box here. So
Yep.
this is the corner. Now here's the tour guide. We come into this room and it looks like I'm closer to him, but honestly, I'm in the back corner. Then he tells us all to line up against that wall.
Yep.
So he tells us to line up against the wall. So the reflection of this window, when I went back to the Stanley Hotel, I found the tour guide. I showed him the picture. And they actually took my picture and framed it at the Stanley Hotel for a bit. But in the basement area. And we haven't even talked about the basement.
Yeah.
So in this picture, that this back window or mirror is what we're going to be looking at. And when I went back to the Stanley Hotel, the same tour guide, and we had one of the managers or somebody there with us, they had me stand at different places in this room to see how we could get that reflection off that mirror. And I actually had to be standing behind him a little, almost over this way to that opening, French doors opening. I think that where did that go to? Like
Those went
back.
that hallway went to a series of rooms called the Heritage Suites.
Okay, so this person, to reflect that way, had to stand behind him closer to this wall. So here we go. Here is me. This is zoomed in. This terrible quality, but you got the billiard information here. But you see in this mirror,
Yeah, I do.
you see him standing there, and it looks like he has a suit on. His hair's parted, maybe a little bit. The head.
Oh
I still
my.
get chills on that.
That couldn't be a person because everybody
No,
is no.
everybody look. And
There you go.
this was taken maybe about a minute apart. Like it was like almost in the same frame, but there was some space there. But and then here you go, standing there in that mirror. Ooh, so I'm so excited because I've always been connected. I'm like, if I remember saying, "FO, if you're going to show yourself. I want to see what you look like." I know that's silly, but that's what I was saying. So then here's this. So here's FO Stanley with the violin and everything in front. Now look at him. Now I did a side by side here of FO and the guy in the mirror here. I think they look similar. I think he looks like he has a suit jacket on though.
Thin.
Am I wrong? Thin. Looks
Yep.
like he has a parted hair the same way a little bit. I mean, you can't see, it's blurred.
Yeah.
But what do you think about this?
I think that's got some solid legitimacy to it. Wow.
Yeah. So they took that picture and they did frame it and they put it down in the basement of the Stanley Hotel. And I don't know how long, I don't know if it's still there. If anybody goes to the Stanley Hotel here in recent days and you see this down there, please message me and let me know. But that's what I got. And that was back in 2013. So 11 years ago. Yeah, it was 2013.
And you still have that shot. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So and I've investigated the Stanley Hotel and everything. So we got about 10 minutes left. Let me pull up. Is it okay do you have anything else you want to say about the Stanley Hotel? Like I have EVPs, and if you're going to listen to some EVPs, I will recommend to put headphones on or anything because some of these aren't. Regina, I think we're going soon. It's been a bit since we've been to Estes. Yeah. Go. And let me tell you, if you go and get all kinds of pictures or go live or something, let me know. Go live from the Stanley Hotel and watch. Nobody goes live from there or anything that I've seen.
So
anymore.
I do have one story I want to share with you.
Yes, go ahead.
This makes me excited every time I tell it. So earlier, remember I said how, at any location, you'll have things that happen fairly regularly or semi-regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So, at the Stanley, of course, it's no exception. However, I was told this story about one of the old timers, Scary Mary, who is a doll.
Scary Mary.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
she's amazing. So I think this is probably back in the 20s or 30s. I'd have to think back on my notes, but whatever. there was a little girl who was there for the duration of the summer, little Parisian girl. One of the things about the hotel she loved was the elevator.
Oh, I forgot about that elevator. Go
Back
ahead.
back then, the elevator it's an original 1909 Otis. Back then, it was hydraulic by water, if you can believe that. But
Wow.
she loved riding this elevator up and down. While she's in the elevator, she would always hum. She always sing around the hallways. Almost right out of a movie. So fast forward to when I was working there as a night auditor. It was a quiet night. I was doing my work at the front desk, and I got a call from some people up on the fourth floor saying, "Hey, there's some kids running around outside in the hallway. Can you come up and
Mm.
tell them to quit?" So I'm thinking to myself, fourth floor, okay. So I stopped what I was doing, and I decided, you know what? I'm gonna catch these kids red-handed. I'm not taking the elevator. I'm taking the stairways or the staircases. So I took the staircase up to the west side real quietly. I got up to the landing on the fourth floor. I didn't see any kids. I made a sweep on both sides because it's shaped like an H. And,
Yeah.
I was standing in front of the elevator going, okay, whoever they were, they must be done for the night. It's late. So I'm standing in front of the elevator in room 401, also called the Dunraven room. And I was getting ready to go, and I got about 4 steps down the hallway. The elevator rings or it bings, bing, bing, like the door's going to open. So I stopped and I kind of turned around and looked. The door's open, but nobody got out. The door's closed. So I stood there and I walked back towards the elevator looking at it going, oh, that's kind of odd. Like, stayed there for a few seconds. I'm like, okay. Start to walk away. Bing, bing. The door's opened. So
Again.
now I took 2 steps back, and keep in mind, this is probably about 2 in the morning. I stuck my head into the elevator, and it's all brass and mirror on the inside, as you probably know. So
Yes.
even an ant can't hide in that elevator without being seen. I kind of stepped back and watched the doors closed. And so at that point, I stepped back and leaned up against the hallway, against the wall. Stayed there for, I don't know, maybe 10 seconds. I was like, all right, that was weird. I got ready to go. Ding, ding. The doors opened again. And Emily, I swear to God, what I heard out of that elevator was the
Oh, it's
the
creepy.
doors shut. Never happened again.
I found a picture of the Stanley Hotel elevator here, everybody. It's to the right of the grand staircase when you go into the foyer area and it's all gold, but it ran on water. That's what you said. It was water at one
Originally.
time.
Yeah. So if it had
Yeah.
so as a hydraulic fluid, water is very poor because it's not very viscous.
Uh-huh.
So if there's too much weight in the elevator, the carriage would slowly start to sink until the weight was removed.
Well, water, Stanley steamer, water, and then also water is known to be like a catalyst to paranormal activity and things. But
Yeah.
when I talked to you about this show last week, I was there on a Strange Escapes. The last time I was there in 2018 on a Strange Escapes adventure with Amy Bruni's group and all that. And one of the rooms we investigated was Lord Dunraven's room right next to the elevator. And nobody would go into that closet and do an investigation. I'm like, man, this is the only time I'm going to be in Lord Dunraven's room. I'm going to go in because they all say, like, you open that closet and you'll see him or something. I think that's how the story goes. And so I went into that closet, and I think I was in that closet for about 30 to 45 minutes before I came out of the closet. But I will tell you this, I had static electricity in my hair. My hair was like static electricity. And I started thinking that this elevator is right next to that room. I think that elevator was a conduit to possible electromagnetic energy. And that might be a reason why people see things there. That I think the EMF in that area is extremely high.
I would agree.
And I think your mind can play games on you with EMF. Obviously, it can make you paranoid. It can make you schizophrenic. It can make you all kinds of things, see things that you don't know, and everything. But that was my experience with Lord. I did not see Lord Dunraven. I just sat in there the whole time, and I was just like, I could hear the elevator moving. I could hear other people talking in the hallway and stuff. And I just sat there just to see if I could feel it. I didn't feel creeped out. I didn't feel spooked. But when I came out, like my hair, which I have big hair anyway, I'm the child of an 80s. But it was like out, like I had static electricity in my hair. And I was like, that's the issue, is by the elevator.
And going back to something you literally just said, to your point, you never felt creeped out.
Yeah.
The time that I did tours of the Stanleys, some of the questions that I would take, the St. James Hotel, actually in Cimarron, New Mexico, is another spot.
Yeah.
I've been to several times, and I've had people ask me, it's like, well, why isn't this place more evil, or why isn't this place, have more of a reputation, and going back to the Stanley Hotel is not, it's not a scary place. It's not evil. Think about it, for the 100+ years that building has been around. Yeah, of course, people have died and come and gone. It's over 100 years old. It happens. But the overwhelming majority of people staying in that hotel, everything's been positive. Lots of music, lots of weddings, lots of laughter. So, in my opinion, is it haunted? Yes, absolutely. But it's good memories. It's
It is
pleasant.
good memories. Stephen King. I love Stephen King. I'm a Stephen King fan, but
Yeah.
I hear that he's a jerk in real life too. But I've read a lot of his books. My mom was a huge Stephen King fan and everything. And The Shining was just one of those, I'm an 80s baby. So it was one of those horror films that you
Mhm.
always grew up watching. And I did not understand the connection. I did not know, because honestly, in the movie, they don't use the Stanley Hotel as the vocal or the viewpoint. They use 3 different other hotels other than the Stanley Hotel in that movie. And so I never connected it. I learned how the Stanley Hotel was, and I'm thankful for this, from the side of history and who FO and FE Stanley truly were in their father being a school teacher. My mom's a retired school teacher. I have degrees in education too. So that's how I learned about the Stanley Hotel, and I'm thankful for it. I think these people that don't understand the history of it and they just spin it off, Stephen King's Shining, manipulate what really has gone on there.
Yep.
And I mean, I don't know if that's a real bad thing or not. It's not their, it's not, it's not their fault. I mean, that movie, and then plus Sleep Doctor, which was fantastic too, which is written by Stephen King's son, and Stephen King helped him and everything. Sleep Doctor was fantastic. I loved it. It brought in The Shining, and stuff. I thought it was I thought this was going to be a flop. I loved it.
Owen
But
King. Yep.
yeah, so so I'm thankful though that I've always had this connection to that place, felt like I've had a connection to that place, and I'm thankful that I learned the history before I learned the hauntings. And I don't think anything is bad at the Stanley Hotel. I don't.
100%.
And I
100%.
love it. Love it. But I do have EVPs of Lucy.
Let's hear 'em.
Which we didn't even talk about Lucy.
I know. Can
I
almost do
know,
it
it's
two-parter.
so long. So we're gonna have to have you come back on. Lucy was tell me if I'm wrong. Lucy was a homeless person in Estes, and she
Correct.
was seeking shelter out of the cold blizzard, and she actually froze to death. And they didn't find her body until the spring, right?
For a while, because again, the buildings don't have any heat.
Right. So now I haven't listened. I sent this to you. You responded to me in an email and told me you've heard them. I don't have these tagged. I thought I had them tagged, but this is at the bottom of the concert hall where this took place. I just have 4. We'll just play. It says this one. These are very short. Lucy says it's me. So let's listen to this.
Sure didn't sound like it.
Here it is.
Like it.
It's me.
Like it.
Here.
Sure sound like it.
It's me.
Like it.
Right there.
Did you hear it?
Sound like it.
Did you hear it or no?
The third time through, we did.
Okay, it's a real whisper. It sounds far away, and that's my mom talking, by the way. And it felt like it, and it goes, "It's me." Listen,
It sure didn't sound like it.
it's me.
Like it. Like it.
It's me right there. Okay, this one's stop.
Verse.
What kind of song did they listen to? This song did they listen to? This
verse.
what kind of song did they listen to? This
Right
I
there.
don't even hear
What
stop.
kind of
I don't.
song-
I don't hear stop in that. I'm sorry. So that must have been a long. I'm a very truthful person. It must have been a long time. What kind of stop? Maybe.
what kind of song did they listen to? Song did they listen to?
Sounds
What
like there's
song
something
did they
there.
listen to?
There's something
Sounds
there,
like-
but
Yeah.
it's
I don't
getting
think it's
mixed up.
stop. I don't think it's stopped. Plus, I'm using a way better earbuds that I had now. This was 6 years ago, everybody. So I have way better earbuds on now. Okay, that's stop. Here's giggles. There's no sound on that at all.
This one I had a hard time hearing.
There's no sound.
Huh.
See, remember when I told you about my corrupted files from the Stanley? I had over 50 million
Yeah.
different EVPs, corrupt files. The giggles is not even there now.
This fourth
see
EVP
if
is
this-
pretty clear.
Right here? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Right here.
right there.
Right here.
It was right.
And then my mom says it's right here. Listen.
It was right.
Well, she didn't do the last end right here. She said it was right here. And right here. Let me tell you this, everybody. We're in the concert hall all by ourselves in the basement. And there's an open area when you come down the stairs, and then there's a hallway that goes straight, and then it goes left to Lucy's room towards the back. That's where we were. There was nobody else in that building. Nobody else. So that's some EVPs I got, but I had a lot more of experiences. We didn't talk about the tunnel, the stuff. Like Kiefer, I want you to come back on. Will you come back on the show? We'll talk about more.
We didn't talk about
Pet
the
cemetery.
tunnel, the concert hall, the pet cemetery, or the carriage house.
No, we didn't talk about any of that. So I'm going to have to reach out to you and get you come back on. We'll talk about this soon. Maybe we'll do some other paranormal stuff during the summertime or whatever, because I don't want to wait till October for this. This is fun. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on. I have your squarespace.com, but I found you on LinkedIn. Can you tell everybody or anybody where else they can find you, or social media?
Yeah, in terms of social media, my website there, that squarespace.com account, is basically where I'm trying to coordinate everything onto there. Just because everybody having so many social media sites nowadays, 3, 4, 5 different sites, I think it's easier just to keep everything on 1 or 2 sites. So Squarespace is going to be the best place to get a hold of me. Obviously Facebook and LinkedIn work too, but I have links to both of those sites on the Squarespace site.
And Kiefer does other paranormal stuff too. There's some things on his website too that's other than the Stanley Hotel. He's a adventurous. He posts a lot of great pictures and images and documents quite a bit of things out there in the West. So please reach out to him. And if you can't get a hold of him through that way, which I had no problem with, so I don't think you would, but you can also reach out to me at What the Frick Live to get in touch with Kiefer to have him on your show. Yeah, we're going to have you come back on. I appreciate you so much for being part of this tonight. The Stanley Hotel. Maybe the next time I will dress up as Wendy again, because I still have the costume and everything in there. I think I did an okay job.
I'll try and find a yellow tux to wear.
Dumb and Dumber. That's what I should do. I should do Dumb and Dumber on it too. But thank you so much. Thank you everybody for tuning in this evening. We appreciate you. Next week, it's actually going to be a double header week. We're going to have 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. We're going to have Mr. Norton on. He is a military person that's active military. He's going to be telling us tales from the grid square, all the paranormal encounters that him and his buddies have encountered on the military sites and things he's traveled. Yeah, it's going to be good. And then at 9 to 10 p.m., we're going to have Josh and Dilla on. We're going to be talking about deep sea haunts and when it goes on out in the ocean. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you and have a wonderful weekend.